This is Gemara Megillah Daf Yomi. All the learning should be as choshirach for Yisrael in the version. Remember, as it's the Giddush and the Esau Bashar Malka, the Mordechai is Abishendel, as the Giddush of Abishendel, Shema ben Chaya, Shlomo ben Levi Zahava. You should all find there's Ziva Kagin Bekarev. Also, the learning should be as choshirach for Shema, Shal Yosef and Yeveder for Lavram and Rachel Adaya, Shimshon ben Chano, Abigail Perel Bas Esther, Amenu Vavega Chaim Asar, Shamzim ben Rizal, Zar Bas Knendel, Ita Basian Bas Chayisay, Yisrael ben Mindel, Yad Der Bert ben Zerlei, Shalom as Noavi, Vashavigo Shechan Shmo ben Tila, Tanim and Chan Rezo Mechai Bas Vina Dinena Bashim Mindel Ziva Vega Necheles Vor Natel Hoover if Gavaz Shav Natel Zimich Lester Amram ben Yaakov Tvisog Shar Chayli Yisrael. Pick it up on the bottom of excuse me Chavav Amid Beis. We are 6 lines from the bottom. Amr Marzutra, continuing the theme of what you're allowed to sell, and if the kedusha leaves the item, what do you do with the new item, etc. So it says Marzutra mitfachais svarim shabalu. So we dealt with when you sell something that the kedusha is transferred to the money. Now that money has to be used to purchase something with a higher sanctity. You sell the town square, you have to use the money to buy a shul. You sell the shul, the bima, etc., etc. But now, what happens if the item with kedusha itself gets worn out? What do you do with it now? So it says the Gemara mitfachei svarim shabalu. If the covering of svarim get worn out, oisin I say tachrich l'meis. You could use it to make tachrichim. Use it to make the shrouds for the corpse. Mitzvah. Oisin I say tachrichem l'meis. Mitzvah. Excuse me. V'zui gnizas, and that's how it's going to get buried. You have to bury the item, as we learned yesterday. Tashmishe kedusha have to be buried. The way you'll bury it is on the corpse. V'amarav, and Rav continues, Sefer Torah shabalu. What if a Sefer Torah itself gets worn out? You don't just bury it, you bury it next to a Talmud Chacham. Any level of Talmud Chacham, even one that just learned halachais, and Amar Rav Acha bar Yaakov, but there's an important detail that he adds on, u'b'klei cheres. You can't just take the Sefer Torah and put it in the ground. You have to take the Sefer Torah and you have to put it into an earthenware container. Why? Because you don't want it to deteriorate. Shenamar, as the Apostle says, v'nasatem b'klei cheres laman yamdu yamim rabim. You want it to stand for many days. You don't want the Torah to disintegrate, so therefore you put it inside the klei cheres. Amar Rabbi mishmei de Rebbe mibei kenishta lebei Rabbanan. Shari mibei Rabbanan lebei kenishta lebei. Excuse me, mibei. Let's read that again. Amar Abavi Mishei de Rabbi mibei kenishta lebei Rabbanan. To go from a shul to the base medrash is shari. Mibei Rabbanan lebei kenishta. To go from a base medrash to a shul, asir, that is forbidden. That is Rav Papi. So Rav Papi allows you to go from shul to base medrash, but not in the reverse. V'Rav Papa on the last side, Mishmei de Rav Masti Ibcha, he learned the opposite. You let it go from a base medrash to a shul, but not a shul to a base medrash. Omar Rav Acha, said Rav Acha, Kavasei, we turn over to today's Daf Chav Zayin Omar Aleph. Kavasei to Rav Papi Mistaver, that which Rav Papi said is more mistaver, is more logical. That you let it go from shul up to a base medrash. Why? The Rav Yeshua and Levi basic Knesses Motala Sai base medrash. Shema Mina, and there we have a clear raya that the base medrash is an upgrade from the shul. And therefore, you could see that you could sell and you could go from the shul to the base medrash. And now the Gemara continues. Darash bar kapara, 3 lines into Chav Zayin Amar Aleph. What is the meaning of the pasuk? V'yisrei v'zbeis Hashem, and the house of Hashem was burnt. V'zbeis Hamelech, and the house of the king. V'zkol bati Yushalayim, and all the house of Yushalayim is called Beis Gadol Sarav Beish, and the great house was burnt in fire. Beis Hashem. When the pasuk says that the house of God was burnt, Zeh Beis Hamikdash. Beis Hamelech, Elu Platron Shal Melech. What does Beis Hamelech refer to? This refers to the palace. That's called Bati Yushalayim Kimashman, all the houses. That's called Beis Gadol Saraf Beish. What do those last phrases mean? That's called Beis Gadol. We already said the Beis Hamikdash. So what's the end of the phrase? Rav Yochanan and Rav Yeshua ben Levi, we have a machlekes Chadam or Makim Shemigadlin by Torah, Chadaka Makim Shemigadlin by Tefillah. And that's our machlekes, which is at some level greater. Talmud Torah connected to Kulam or Tefillah, that you're connecting to your Creator. And the Gemara brings the Raya Man the Amar Torah d'chsev Hashem chafetz man tzigdo yagdil Torah v'yadir. As the pasuk says, that what does Hashem want? Hashem wants increased in Torah. And in the first white line, Man Amar Tefillah d'chsev Sifra Na Gedaylais. As the pasuk says, you should recount You should relate. Elisha, all the great things that Elisha did, and what did Elisha do? Elisha, David, he did it with Racham, he did it with Tefillah. So that's the machlekes over here. Which is greater? You let upgrade shul to Beis Medrash because Beis Medrash is higher, or vice versa. The Gemara brings a raya this time. There, Yehoshua ben Levi, I'll bring you a proof that Yehoshua ben Levi is one that says Torah is greater. Yehoshua ben Levi, because Yehoshua ben Levi is of the opinion that you let it go from shul to Beis Medrash. And that is the transfer of shul to Beis Medrash. Says the Gemara, now we get into the incredible power and kedusha of a sefer Torah. As the Gemara says, 4 lines in, it's the wide lines of we said you can never downgrade. Ibayalu asked the Gemara a fundamental shaila. Can you sell an old Sefer Torah to buy a new Sefer Torah? And the Gemara explains, you're not going up. We said you always have to go up. So Sefer Torah is the same level, therefore it's forbidden. There's nothing higher yet at the top. It's the best. So maybe it is okay. Fundamental shayla, you let to sell a sefer Torah to purchase a second. Dashema says the Gemara. Let's bring a proof. If you sell Torah, you're not allowed to buy with it books of Tanakh. Svarim udalais. What's the obvious implication? You're only not allowed to buy Svarim. So seemingly the Gemara says we have a raya from the Mishnah that you could sell the Torah for another Torah. But explains the Gemara, no proof. Masnizim David. The Mishnah is talking about you did it. You sold it. What do you do with the money? We're discussing lechatchila. Best course of action. Can I sell a Torah for another Torah? And for that, we do not have a proof. Tashema, another ayah. Koilin sefer Torah b'mitzvachos chumshin v'choshim b'mitzvachos devim. You're allowed to roll the sefer Torah with the wrappings of a chumash, the chumash with the wrappings of a navi uksubim. Avaloi nevim uksubim mitzvachos chumshin. You can use the wrapping of a Torah for nevim uksubim. Like chumshin b'mitzvachos sefer Torah. So what do we see from here? Kadani miyos. We see at any rate koilim sefer Torah b'mitzvachos chumshin. And now what's the obvious implication? Mitzvachos chumshin in mitzvachos sefer Torah lai. We see clearly you're only allowed to roll it with the mitzvachos of the chumshin, but not with the wrappings of the Sefer Torah. And now the Gemara points out that in classical Gemara sense, that if you look at the end of the Mishnah, it's going to contradict what we just said. Hema Seifa, Sefer Torah. What's the obvious implication? So anytime we have two statements in a Mishnah that one could be construed as X, or one could be construed the opposite, we do not have any raya from the Mishnah. Tashemas, we try a third raya, whether you can sell an old Sefer Torah to buy a burnt new one. Tashema. We're about 15 lines to the wide lines. First one in line is Tashema. You let it rest one Torah on another. Avol loy neviim uksuvim al gabi chumshin. The Torah has to be on top. V'loy chumshin al gabi Torah. You can't put a chumash on a Torah. So what do we see? We see for this brayso hanacha k'amrit. Meaning, what do we see for this brayso? We see that you're allowed to place a Torah in another Torah. So the Gemara wants to bring a proof that you as well could sell a Torah for another Torah. But to this, the Gemara says no way. Hanocha ka'amri, talking about placing it. Shiny hanocha d'loyav. There's no possibility of nowhere else to do it. For example, sometimes you have 3 sefer Torah and you have to move it over, move the other one over to do hagbon. You'll end up with one Torah on top of the next. There's no option. That's why it's allowed. And the Gemara proves this. If you're not going to tell me that michrach echi karchina, how do you roll a sefer Torah? Why? What's the Rama as it rolls? What's happening? You're putting one daf of the Torah on the next on its friend. And that is attempt number 3. So Tashema, the Gemara tries to find a 4th attempt. Quite explicit. So says the Gemara, you see you're not allowed to do it. Answers the Gemara, they were worried about negligence. It's sitting, it's waiting to be purchased. It's not the case that you might buy one, you might not buy one. But there's another newer Torah right there. So you're going to sell this one and immediately use the proceeds. That is our kasha. What is halacha? So Tashema, we're on a fifth attempt. You only allowed to sell Sefer Torah to learn Torah, of least Isha, or to get married. Shema mina Torah b'Torah Shabbat. You see, you can sell Torah for Torah. You can sell one Torah to learn Torah. Says the Gemara. No. Tell me, shiny liman learning Torah is different. Shaliman maybe lidei ma'isa that brings one to action, but to sell a Sefer Torah for another Sefer Torah that you're going to read in shul, that maybe you cannot do. The Gemara continues by saying, Yishanami, so too selling it to get married, lo teibara l'shavas yitzara, one, it's not good for one to be by himself. And that's also the command to have children. Avol Torah b'Torah, loi. So Tana Rabbanan, a final attempt. Excuse me, and that's the end of it, that we don't have a raya whether you could sell one Sefer Torah for the next. But now says the Gemara, Tana Rabbanan, lo yimkar other Sefer Torah, clear brisa. You're not allowed to sell a Sefer Torah afilu she'in tzarich loi, even if you don't need it. And yes, even more than that, says of Shimon Gamliel, afilu ein loi ma yoichal. You got nothing to eat and you own the Sefer Torah. It's like, great. No way. If you sell your Sefer Torah, or one sells his daughter in order to have basic necessities, basic food, still you'll not see a simon bracha on the money that you raised. Doesn't sound like it's usher, but why would one do it if anyways you're not going to have the money, because you're not going to get a bracha on that money? Says the Gemara, 6 lines in the white lines, the two dots, v'chein b'maisreim. Now the din of the Mishnah we said is not only with the money that you get for selling the Sefer Torah, selling the shul, etc. It's even the excess, that if you use that money for something and now you have a surplus, that excess has the same kedusha. So Amar Rav lo yishanu el shemachru v'hisiru, that you sold it, now you have extra. Let's say you raise the funds, a classical shayla, you raise funds for tzedakah X, and now you don't have it anymore, mutter, then the excess is going to be mutter, and you can use it for other purposes, not necessarily the Torah that you collected it for. If you made a tenai, such an important line in the Gemara, if you made a tenai before the purchase, then you can do whatever you want. You can even use it to hire a d'chsusta, which Rashi says is a type of messenger, a type of shliach. But says the Gemara, one second. What's the case? You sold it and you have leftovers. Who cares? You made it tonight. We said you're not allowed to sell it. You collect and you have extra. So time beautiful. What's the raya? Only it's good because you made it tonight. Law is new law. If you didn't make it tonight, seemingly everything would be for the cause that it was collected. Says the Gemara, no, Raya, really, and this is the case. Like we learned yesterday, if the 7 trustees of the city sell something, is a totally different story. So says the Gemara, you know, you have to read the brisa, but this only applies when the 7 trustees did not sell it. If they made it tonight, if they can condition the sale, you're allowed to use the money for any cause that you deem fitting. And Amar Le'Abaye on the first very wide line, the Rabbanan that were learning in front of Rav Shishas, he asked me, Rav Shishas, my d'chsusta, to hear what this d'chsusta is. Amar Rav Shishas, Parsha Dimasa, this is what Rav Shishas said. Amar Rav Shishas, that Parsha Dimasa, Parsha Demasa, that d'chsusa is what? Is the Parsha Demasa. He is the one that goes around delivering the letters in the town. That's what we're referring to. Amar Abaye says, Abaye, so we just said, hi, Tzormei Rabbanan, the Shamlei Mills of Loyada Birusha. Let's say you don't know something. You're a Talmud, you heard something, you don't know what it means. What should you do? L'shayli kamei, l'shiyach kamei, go in front of someone, you're commonly in front of a Rebbe, Rabbanan, to lo'evshar lo'ishmiya min gavra. Says the Gemara, if you have a Rebbe, then you could go back to him. But that's only if you have your personal Rebbe. But someone that does not, someone that does not delay efshar, it's not possible, then excuse me. I said that wrong. Go and ask why, because I'm sure your Rebbe knows. He must have heard about it from a green man exactly what this word means. Amar Rav Yochanan says, Rav Yochanan. Now we get a little bit into the dinam of tzedakah. 5 lines from the end of the Amid. They went to another city and they gave them tzedakah. And when you come back, you should bring it back to them. Says the Gemara, if when you're sitting there, they gave him taxes, they said you have to pay for a charity, nice thing, you should give whatever they ask you for. But when you go back home, you know what's going to happen. They're going to give you back the money and then say, okay, we just held on to you, go home and give it to your local aniyim. The Gemara brings a proof. You go to another city and the guy comes over, the guy is talking, let's go, $100. Nice thing, give it. When you leave, they should give it back to you and say, give it to aniyim in your town. Of course, the aniyim of your town are always better. Let's say it's a singular person. Tinas, and you should make it tonight. That you really want to do is to give it to Tinas and Lani Oisir. You should give it to the poor people in that town. Rosh Hashanah Gazet Anisa. What happened? Excuse me. Rav Huna Gazet Anisa, not Rosh Hashanah. Rav Huna Gazet Anisa. All Gavi Rav Chanina Bar Chanilai V'Chovnei Masya Ramu Alayu Tzedakah. And then everyone came. What happened? And they all gave Rav Huna Tzedakah. The Yavu Kibau Lemeisei. And what happened was Rav Huna got all this money. When they're about to leave, they said to him, "Nice and Lanmar, Benizel, my son." They said, "Why don't you give some money for tzedakah?" Amr Lahu, you responded to Nina. When do you have to give tzedakah? When there's no great person sitting and learning in that city? Give it to him, and he's the one that determines what you do with the money. And certainly because everyone relies on him either way, and that is what we do over there. Says the Mishnah as we turn over to Chav Zayin and Mabeis in Meichane Shal Ramli Yachane Shemaraudin Raisamik Tushas Devrameir. If you have something belonging to the public and then you sell it to a singular person, that's a harada, that's going down. It's not as kaddish because it's only used by one person now. Rameir, Divi Rameir. Amrullah, the Chum said him Kain. Avlamir Gedalir Ktani, you should not even be allowed to sell something from a large city to a small city because now there's going to be less people. So it sounds like if Kedusha has to do with numbers, there's going to be less Kedusha. Says the Gemara, Shaber Kamli Rabban the Rameir. The Rabbanan have a good taina against Rameir. V'Rameir. But what does Rameir do to answer up that which the Rabbanan said? At the end of it has Kedusha. There's no levels of Kedusha, says Rameir. It has Kedusha, it has Kedusha. May Rabim liyachid like Kedusha. A singular person is no that element of Kedusha. So if you're selling from big city to bigger city or vice versa, big city to small city, there's still 10 people, there's Kedusha. To sell to Yachid, that you cannot do. Hadras Melech. Says Abai that if someone is nervous for whatever its reason, then you're allowed to read all together. Why? Because B'Roivam Hadras Melech is going to override many other concerns. Says the Mishnah in Meichrin Beisakanetsel Al Tanai Shem Yertu Yachziru Devramir. You never sell a shul unless you make a condition. If I want, I could buy it back. If I want, they have to give it back to me. That's what Meir says. Chamaimrim Meichrin I say Mem Chalel. No, you could sell it. Chutz ve'arba dvarim, 4 things you cannot sell. Amerchas laborski l'tfilah beis hamayim. Rav Yudaimer Meichen, I say you're not to sell those. L'shem chatzer v'alakeach mashir tziyatz. They can do what we want. So now the question is the level of sanctity of these different items and when you're allowed to sell it or not. So we begin with Rameir, in which Rameir began the Mishnah by teaching us this din of tonight. So says the Gemara Rameir heicha de yariba. According to Rameir, are they allowed to go and live in there? Those who buy a shul, are they allowed to go into the shul? The Rameir Hecha Dayareba Hahavale Ribis. It's going to be a case of ribis. Fascinating. How is this a case of ribis? Because I am selling shul. I am selling, let's say Rashi speaks out exactly what's going on over here, how this could be ribis. Rashi says, No, it's no Rashi. It's a mice of Rashi on the side of my Gemara, which is right here. Here we go. Sad echad beribis. Why is it sad echad beribis? Rashi says ribis, which is not al yedei halava. Ribis does not go through a loan. Al yedei mecher, through a sale. Upon mishabali deiros, and sometimes they come to ribis. That's called sad echad beribis. Because the problem here is heichad dayari. The Gemara is asking that if I sell the shul to someone and that person goes and lives and uses the shul, and then eventually I'm going to redeem it, what's going to happen? That means my money that's in his house is a quote-unquote halva. It's a loan to him, and now he's using the shul. If in 5 years I get back that money, he just gave me, what did he just get? He just got the money, and he got the usage of the shul. So it's a classical case of sadecha beribis, that when you approach it one way, it's going to be ribis, that on the potential that the shul does not get bought back, then it's fine, then Laila and Vad, you're allowed to use this entity. But if there's going to be a day I might be chayzer, I might retract, and that day there's going to end up being ribis. So says the Gemara, Rav Yechon, Rav Meir, Rishit is Rav Yehuda Amra, Tamar Tarecha Beribis, Motor. Rav Meir says it's Motor. The Chacham are saying it's also because they outside Echad Beribis, a potential case of ribis is forbidden. The Tani learns in a rice. I lend you $100, and you give me the field as collateral for the loan. So if you, the seller, you gave a field as a collateral and you're still sitting in the field, then great. You have my money and you have your own field. And what am I going to get back? My money, everything's fine. But like, let's say you tell me this field is collateral and you could go use it. So now what happened? I'm getting beirus and I'm getting back my money. That is called tzadachah beribis, and that is forbidden. If you don't even if the beirus is not a problem. So we see that you're not, that the lekech the beirus, not the mochel like you just suggested. Amrullah, Rav Yehuda responds, Misham Raya. It's not true, you got the case wrong. It was the seller eating and not the buyer. Says the Gemara, what is the practical difference between these two opinions? Also, that's the fundamental machlek is going on over here. In any case, that there could become ribis. Right now it's not, because right now you're using the field and I have the cash. But if the eventuality is going to be that the same person that gets the halva is the one that is using his field, that is called, he's paying him back more than he lent. He borrowed $100, and what's he paying back? $100 and the usage, and therefore that's going to be the problem. Rava Amar comes like Rava, 5 lines to the Y lines, and he explains the Kuliyama Tzedach Ribis also. No, everyone agrees if something could come to Ribis, it's forbidden. It's a new discussion. Can I take the Ribis money on condition to return it? Marsavar Ribis Almanas Lachser is Mutter, Marsavar Alser, and that's going to play in exactly what you're going to be allowed to do in these situations. Says the Gemara at the end of the white lines, and the Chachamim say you'll let it sell it permanently. You're allowed to sell these fields in Yerushalayim. Says the Gemara on the first white line, you're allowed to use the bathroom within 4 amos of tefillah. You daven here, and then you walk 4 amos away, and that is where you're allowed to use the bathroom. Of course, in a nostalgic world without bathrooms and outhouses, you went through, you were able to, so don't go right where you daven, go out 4 amos. Amar Rav Yosef comes along, Rav Yosef in the second white line, and he says, My Gamash Malan, it's Pashit, Tanina, we learned in the Mishnah, Rav Yudaimer, Meichon, Shem Chaser, V'lokech Mashir Tiyasa, V'afilu Rabbanan L'Kamim, the Rabbanan who argued. How do they argue? Elabes HaKnesses, the Kvi Kedusha say that's a shul. The shul has inherent Kedusha in it. Aval Davar, Aval Dalit Amos, like Kvi Kedusha Sayu. If I'm davening here, there's no Kvi, there's no set nature of my tefillah. Happens to be where I'm davening. So it's such a scenario, we're going to say there's going to be Kedusha. Law, he says the Gemara, that is not something that you have to be concerned about. And someone's davening, you should walk 4 amos, then use the bathroom, Ramashtin, Merchik Dal Amos, Mispal, and walk another 4 amos in Davin. I understand that after urinating, you got to leave 4 amos. Why? Tanina. You have to always leave 4 amos away from any fecal matter. What's the reason? Lamali Excuse me. Lamali, what's the reason why you have to move out of your Dalit Amos? So says the Gemara, Yachi, Kedushasayu, Lekulu Shvili Dinardai. Are you going to tell me that there's Kedusha to all the streets of Nardai? That's not possible. So in the first white line, the Gemara answers, or Reb Nachman concludes, I should say, Tani Yesha means you should wait and not distance yourself. So says the Gemara, one second, let's analyze exactly what's going on over here. I understand. Anytime you use the bathroom, you want to wait for all the droplets to finish off because you don't want to get some droplets in your pants, as we've seen many times, because then someone might suspect you of being a krov etc. Why are you waiting the amount of time to walk Dalit Amos? Ravashi, Shekol Dalit Amos, Tfilas, Sidura, Bepev, Rachushi, Marachashan, Svasasa. For a different reason, you're right. There's nothing to do with the fact that there's someone that used the bathroom in the vicinity. The reason is to make sure your tefillah is sedura, it's fluent, and v'rachushi merachan shivsasei, and his lips are moving, that you're davening appropriately. That is that which the concerns of the Dalit Amos within one davens. We'll pick it up from the two dots the next year. Mirza Hashem.